Hey my fellow minor league nerds, welcome to our newest Minor League Nerd Shorts episode. This episode will cover two different teams that are known today as the Muncie Fruit Jars. I say they are known today as the Muncie Fruit Jars because during our research, we could not find anything in any newspapers from the times that the teams played showing that they had a nickname. So we're not sure where Fruit Jars comes from. According to Wikipedia, the name was inspired by Muncie's local economy, which was the home of the Ball Brothers Manufacturing Company, which was famous for producing glass canning mason jars. The first team played in the Class C Interstate Association in 1906. It was formed in February of that year with 8 cities represented in the league. The other 7 were Anderson, Indiana, Bay City, Michigan, Flint, Michigan, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Lima, Ohio, Marion, Indiana, and Saginaw, Michigan. The owner of the Muncie team was Fred Page of Penn Yan, a small village in western New York. He promised the city a strong winning team and also served as their field manager. He arrived in Muncie on February 22nd and immediately began working on organizing the team as well as searching for a suitable place to build a ballpark. He had some issues finding a good location for it, with it looking like the team would be moved to Muskegon, Michigan. Eventually, though, he settled on McCulloch Park, keeping the team in Muncie. The season was originally scheduled to begin on April 26th, which is listed as the opening day on Stats Crew. But we found that it was actually moved to May 3rd, with Muncie hosting Saginaw, who they defeated 10-8. Each team was scheduled to play 100 games. As a Class C league, the salary limit was set at $1,000 a month, with the hope of raising it to $1,200 later in the season. Sunday games were scheduled to be played in Muncie, but local ministers took exception to that plan. But it didn't really matter because the franchise was suspended 2 weeks later on May 18th, along with the team in Bay City, who were almost moved to Lansing. Muncie held a 4-16 record. When the team collapsed due to financial issues, they were in Flint, Michigan. Page, who had apparently brought in 2 additional backers, skipped out, owing his players about $200. Some were eventually given a small amount of money that was owed to them by the league. When the team collapsed in Flint, the league seized Muncie's shares of the receipts for the games that had already been played. For the players, it's a good thing they did because most were left with no money to get home and would have had to walk the 260 or so miles back to Muncie or become subjects of local charities in Flint. Interstate Association President E.W. Dickerson did not fault the city of Muncie or the fans for the team's failure. He put the blame all on Page and his other backers, who he said clearly had no business ability and who also built a miserable ballpark. The league continued on with 6 teams, but it was in total chaos by the end of June. All 6 were facing financial issues, with Lima and Saginaw having the worst. The league voted to move the Saginaw team to Sandusky, Ohio, but the players just never showed up to begin play. There was also talk of moving the Flint team to Muncie, but no one stepped up to pay the $1,000 fee to move the team there. On July 8th, the Anderson team withdrew from the league, killing the Interstate Association. Fort Wayne was awarded the league pennant, finishing with a 37-23 record, a game and a half up on Marion, who finished in second with a 35-24 record. The second team that is listed as playing as the Muncie Fruit Jars played in the Indiana-Ohio League in 1908, with the league being organized in early January that year. The 4-team league began as an independent or outlaw league, meaning it was outside the national agreement and was not subjected to salary limits or player contract protections. Besides Muncie, other teams were placed in Van Wert, Ohio, Richmond, Indiana, and Huntington, Indiana, with a few sources today listing them as having played in Huntington, West Virginia. A Muncie team was announced on January 20th, but it appears that the backers fell through. On March 23rd, it was announced again that backers for the team had been found, and they were James and Roger Bresnahan. Roger is a Hall of Fame catcher who had a 17-year playing career. He is also the great uncle of Dave Bresnahan, the subject of our Potato Caper episode, so be sure to check that out if you haven't done so already. Most of the team's players came from the failed Logansport, Indiana team. Their manager was J.R. Baird. They were scheduled to open the season at home, but their ballpark, named Westside Park, wasn't ready, so the series was moved to Huntington, Indiana, and ended up being postponed due to the weather, which is what also delayed their ballpark's construction. The league's first game saw Huntington beat Van Wert 3-2, with Muncie winning its first game on May 9th, defeating the Richmond Quakers 2-1 and shutting them out 1-0 the following day. Just like in 1906, Sunday games were scheduled to be played in Muncie. There was a movement to block them, with it being assumed the complaints that were filed with the sheriff and police chief came from the local ministerial association, but the head of that association said it did not come from them. We were unable to find out any information as to who filed the complaints, but it didn't matter because games were played on Sundays in Muncie. On May 31st, just over 3 weeks after Muncie played its first game, it was announced that the league was disbanding, with poor attendance being cited as the reason. Muncie, though, was the best drawing town. The league, though, had been on shaky ground pretty much from the start. Muncie lost its last game to Van Wert 8-0 and was in last place with a 10-11 record. But that wasn't the end of the league. A group of new backers stepped up in Van Wert and Muncie, announcing that they were willing to finance the teams in their cities through a stock company. This allowed the league to stay together, with it also being announced that the National Commission had accepted the Indiana-Ohio League, awarding it a Class D designation. This helped the league secure its players' contracts, since they would not be able to skip out, jumping to other teams or leagues. Wikipedia, Baseball Reference, and Stats Crew do not show this reorganization, with them all listing the league as having disbanded on June 8th. After a few days off, the reorganized league began play on June 5th, with Muncie traveling to Richmond. On June 8th, Robert Krabs was selected as the team's new manager. The reorganization, though, did not appear to help out Richmond, as was announced many times that the team was moving to another city, most likely Kokomo or Anderson, but that move never came about. The league also looked to add 2 more teams to the loop, hoping 6 would put it on better financial standing, but that also never came about. Muncie, who continued to play around 500 ball, announced another new manager on July 2nd. His name was Harry House, and he was connected to a cigar store in St. John, Indiana. That's all the information we could find out about him. Don't know if he owned the store or if he just hung out there and smoked cigars. Not sure. In early July, rumors began circulating once again that the league would shut down. The backers, though, said they planned on playing the full 120-game schedule and were looking to add a team in Bluffton, Indiana. After the games on Monday, July 6th were played, it looked as if Van Wert was going to move to Bluffton. The move was due to it being illegal for them to play ball on Sundays, a big drawing day in the other cities. If Bluffton was to get the team, it looked as if Kokomo and Decatur, Indiana would join the league as well. Games on July 7th, 8th, and 9th were all postponed, with doubleheaders to be played later to make them up. During that time, Anderson and Huntington played exhibition games in Bluffton to show fans what they could be in for. The transfer of Van Wert to Bluffton, though, was held up, but we could not find any information as to why that was, just that the league backers worked frantically to fix it, being unable to do so. With so many financial issues popping up once again, it looked as if another reorganization of the league was going to take place. After the first one, the quality of play throughout the league increased and fans were excited to attend games. But in the following weeks, the quality of play dropped and fans just stopped showing up. The last games in the league were played on July 12th, with the league shutting down afterward. Just like the Interstate Association, the league struggled from the start. Weekday games in the league averaged 50 to 150 fans per game, with Sunday games averaging under 600. But every team was not able to play on Sundays. Muncie's final games were in a doubleheader against Anderson, seeing them win both 12-3 and 14-1. The Muncie Evening Press called the games a farce, as Anderson made no attempt at playing. If any ball was caught, they said, it was an accident, and if he got a hit, it was because the Muncie pitchers hit their willow with the sphere and it bounded out over the diamond. Fans in Anderson were so disgusted with their team's play that most left before the game was even completed. Most players throughout the league were not paid, with Muncie's owners being the exception as they worked to square up with all their players. Andersons were the worst off, which may explain why their play was lacking during the doubleheader. It was reported that several of their players did not eat at all that day and were seen strolling the streets after the game, unable to get a room due to not having any money. Most of Muncie's players were able to sign with teams in other leagues. Later in July, several former Muncie players played an exhibition game against a team made up of local lawyers, though we were unable to find out the result of the game. Muncie next hosted a team in the Class D Ohio State League, later the Ohio-Indiana League, from 1947 to 1950. They made it to the league championship series in 1948 and 1949, losing first to the Zanesville Dodgers and then to the Marion Red Sox. Well, my fellow minor league nerds, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for all your support, and as always, be sure to never stop supporting minor league baseball and never stop learning about minor league baseball history.
This podcast is part of the Curved Brim Media Network. Here are some of the other members of Curved Brim Media.
Hi, this is Ed Rivera of the Dad Hat Chronicles. Join me as I interview people just like you and players, coaches, GMs on the path that led you to become a fan of the sport.
I'm Paul Caputo, and on the Baseball by Design podcast, I talk to minor league baseball teams, designers, and other super interesting people about what these minor league baseball logos mean, and I talk a little bit about ice cream helmets.
What's up, Bucketheads? I'm Anna DiTomaso, and each week on the Baseball Bucket List podcast, I speak with a different fan about their favorite baseball memories, what the game means to them, and what's left to check off on their baseball bucket list.
Hey everyone, it's Eric from the great state of Kansas.
This is Johnny from the New Orleans Baby Cakes Memorial Museum.
And we are the Earn Fun Average podcast,
where we talk to a variety of guests about their love of baseball and have fun doing it.
America, lower your standards.
Average is what we do best.
This is Patrick
and Corey
of BaseballMapper.com, and we have made an interactive map to help highlight all baseball teams from the majors down to collegiate summer leagues.
We want to bring you closer to baseball, so get on the site and find a team near you today.
Hey guys, this is Patrick Larson from the Minor League Baseball Hat History Series, and in every episode I go through the history of minor league teams through my personal collection of hats. You can find me on Twitter at PatLarson1. I hope you guys enjoy.
Learn more about Curved Brim Media at curvedbrimmedia.com.